Mr. Pandey, Shalini Goel, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Let me first compliment and congratulate the Indian Circular Economy Forum and this huge initiative to bring in circular economy, which is truly the need of the hour for India. The Prime Minister, in his speech at COP26 in Glasgow, had talked at length about life, and he termed it as lifestyle for environment. India is not a major, if you look around at the total emission in the world, India has not been a major emitter. Most of the emission has been done by the developed world. But India will have to be the first country in the world to industrialize without carbonizing. That is the key challenge before India. The rest of the world has already industrialized and is in a post-industrial era. Whereas the challenge for India is to grow at high rates of about 9 to 10% per annum, year after year, for 3 decades or more, to be able to lift a very, very young population above the poverty line. To grow at those high levels, it's not possible that you grow at those high levels without firing on all cylinders, and that is, you can't grow on the back of services sector alone, on which India has grown at a very long time. India needs to grow in agriculture, India needs to grow on manufacturing, and many of these sectors. When the world grew and advanced, there were 2 key things that were happening. One was that the world was being driven by the manufacturing sector, and this large manufacturing sectors across the world, particularly Europe, America, and much later China, they grew on the back of a multilateral trading order. Now, 2 important things that's happening is, when India has to grow and advance at a rapid rate, the multilateral trading order has got greatly weakened. The multilateral trading order has got totally is in a disarray. And the second key point is that today, at this point of time when India has to grow rapidly, it will have to do this on the back of a circular economy, it will have to do it on the back of a clean environment, it will have to do it on the back of decarbonization. These, to my mind, are the key challenges. Now, one of the key things that India has done in recent times is to have very rapid advancement in its renewable energy, and India was the only G20 country which could meet its NDC targets, which it had committed to in Paris. No other G20 country had met its NDC targets. So developed world, if you look at their track record from COP1 to COP26, at each one of these COPs, they make commitments but never fulfill them and then go for long-term targets. So this talk at every time of NDC targets, then of net zero, and then not doing anything on a short term. Whereas our belief is that it's not the long-term targets which are critical, but it's the short-term targets which are very critical. And therefore, India took upon itself the task of going in for massive renewables. India is climatically blessed, and therefore we went in for massive renewables. We went in for wind, we went in for hydro. We've done about 110 gigawatt of renewables. This has been possible because of a very top-class entrepreneurship and young entrepreneurship which disrupted the sector. The challenge for India is that we also import about 160 billion worth of fossil fuel. 160 billion worth of fossil fuel means that the Indian economy is growing on the back of imported fossil fuel. And the challenge for India really is that it should, as the Prime Minister said in his Independence Day address, that by 2047, by the time India becomes 100, we become totally fossil fuel independent. And this would really mean that we are using the strength of our renewables to crack water, use electrolyzer and produce green hydrogen. India is climatically blessed. No other country is blessed in this manner. There's no competition from China as far as the weather conditions are concerned. The only region of the world with which you have competition is the Middle East, which is already flushed with oil and gas. And therefore, it's very important that India uses this climatic conditions to do more and more of renewables. But the more and more of renewables you will do, you will reach a situation where you will end up with the duck curve, like it happened in California, that your grid will not be able to handle renewables. So what do? The answer to that is either battery storage, and battery storage has its own implication because you don't have lithium, you don't have nickel, you don't have cobalt, you'll have to import them and they are highly polluting to the atmospherics. So the alternative to that is that you should be able to use renewables and crack water and produce green hydrogen in its purest form, not grey or blue hydrogen, but green hydrogen in its purest form. And then it's important to understand that electricity is only 18% of our energy. 82% of energy in India is very hard to abate sectors like refinery, like steel, like fertilizer, long distance transport. These are all highly polluting sectors where coal is used or fossil fuel is used. You can go 100% renewable in electricity. It will make very little difference unless you don't clean up these hard-to-abate sectors. And for hard-to-abate sectors, that's 82% of your energy, which is really the polluting sectors. You have to essentially bring in decarbonization. And decarbonization, the best way for India is to do green hydrogen. And become a center for green hydrogen, not only for the domestic economy, because Europe will bring in European border tax by 2026. And Japan, Taiwan, Korea are all moving towards green hydrogen. Therefore, you will not be able to even export your steel to Europe after 2026. So the only way out is to do green hydrogen and become the center of the world. And India is the only country which is blessed to have climatic condition, top-class entrepreneurship, produce green hydrogen, and export to the rest of the world. We import a lot of fossil fuel. We also import a lot of fertilizers. Now, fertilizer in the cleanest form is actually ammonia. The liquid green hydrogen is ammonia, which can be used for fertilizer. So, it's important to decarbonize those sectors. The third critical aspect of this whole strategy is that what the Prime Minister has been saying, that you can't have net zero goals committed by the governments of those countries, like they have not fulfilled from COP1 to COP27, they will not be able to fulfill even their net zero targets unless and until what the Prime Minister is saying, that individual behavior change is made. Lifestyle for environment is done. And that is what the Prime Minister has been repeatedly talking about his life initiative, that is individual behavior change is critical. So if you go to Europe or America, you will see even nighttime all lights are on, buildings full lights are on, there's over-consumerism, huge wastage. Unless we as individuals don't transform our lives, without transforming individuals' lives around, it's not possible to achieve net zero to my mind. Governments may say whatever they want, and therefore that's very critical. And the next critical part of it is that how do we build in a circular economy? So we are still at the beginning of our manufacturing revolution, and circular economy cannot happen without it being an integral part of the design framework. That is, you can't say that I'm going to do circular economy by rules, regulation and procedures and acts. You'll kill businesses. You'll have so much of unease of businesses that it will not be possible. And therefore, circular economy has to begin at the point of R&D for products. That is, how do you design products which are actually, the product is suitable for the next level of, one product has to go into another, second product has to go into another, third product has to go into another. And therefore, there has to be business models around circular economy, and that is very critical because many people think that you can achieve circular economy by rules and regulations. The more rules and regulations you bring in, actually you will be killing economy. Not merely that you will not achieve circular economy, you will kill economies. And therefore, it's very important that as we get onto this development path with rising per capita income, and it's important to understand that this is critical, circular economy is critical because we are at the beginning of our urbanization curve. We are going to see 500 million Indians getting into the process of urbanization in the next 5 decades. 500 million Indians means more than the population of USA, Mexico put together. That means India will have to create a new Chicago every 3 years. Now you can do unsustainable urbanization as is happening in India, unplanned, unsustainable urbanization. The more you do it, you will actually be doing a lot of damage. So it's very important that you do sustainable urbanization on the back of public transportation, recycling of water, recycling of waste, etc. And as I said, changing lifestyle. So as economies have grown across USA, across Europe, we've seen the economic growth has always been coupled with high material consumption. And therefore the challenge for India is that as it grows, as it's urbanized, how do we navigate in a manner where we are able to change lifestyles, where we are able to bring in circular economy concepts. We in India have been thinking very vigorously and in a very holistic and a multidisciplinary manner about the paradigm emphasis. And we are trying to take a very comprehensive view on products and processes to achieve minimization of resource use, increasing useful life of products, recovery of embodied resource at the end of used products, and how do we reduce the environmental footprint of economic activities, and this to my mind is very critical. Integrating considerations relating to people, planet and prosperity into the core of business, actually core of businesses by corporates is really critical because all these elements of people and planet and all this has to get integrated at the design level. We've been working with the Ministry of Environment and Forest and Climate Change. We identified actually 11 areas, and the Prime Minister talked at length about circular economy in his Independence Day address. So we identified 11 areas to facilitate transitioning from linear to circular economy and to give an impetus to manufacturing through the circular economy process. These 11 areas they continue to pose, these are the 11 areas which pose huge challenges and are emerging as new challenge areas for India's, in this whole carbonization strategy of India, and therefore these 11 areas we worked. We had over 200 stakeholders. Many of the members present here were also part of the committees. The committee identified developmental pathways for transition to circular economy. And this involved multiple issues regulatory and developmental measures, because my belief is that the answer does not lie in regulatory measures. There have to be a vast range of development measures as well. And we took care that the regulatory measure does not impact to ease of doing business, does not impact businesses, and the action plan in these areas are at a very advanced stage of implementation. One of the key areas that we considered was how to extend producers' responsibility in many of these areas, particularly areas like electronic manufacturing or solar manufacturing, where producers' responsibility has to be very critical in this area, and they need to play a very critical role in all these. I would therefore think that as India advances as a manufacturing nation, the design component is very critical. Multi-level stakeholder participation is critical. Ensuring that businesses are not impacted, but this circular economy concept develops as a part of the extended producer's responsibility. It's very, very critical and important that we change lifestyles to complement the circular economy process. And therefore, I would like to congratulate the International Council for Circular Economy for playing a very leading role in bringing together influential minds and opportunities for at least bringing the discourse around circular economy center stage. This is very critical. The Council, I'm delighted that it works on the 3 pillars: to educate, to inspire, and to innovate, and has been working on ground to make, and this is very important, that many of us do not work on ground, whereas the action is required on ground, and this Council has been working on ground to make sure that we collectively stand for what we stand on. And this is very important, that we should actually implement circular economy principles. The action-oriented approach of the Council really has impressed me, and I'm really delighted that it is providing a roadmap for the future with a pragmatic problem-solving approach. And therefore, I compliment Team ICCI, all its supporting partners, speakers, delegates who've historically been a part of India's growth story and who are now moving towards the circular economy. My best wishes to all of you who have played a very critical and significant role. I think the Niti Aayog and all the ministries, particularly the Ministry of Environment and Forest, will continue to partner you. This would require a lot of passion, this would require a lot of energy, this would require a lot of dedicated work, it'll require a lot of thinking through, and more important than that, it'll require us to understand what are the best practices available across the world. There are a lot of good practices across Europe, and it's very important that we work with some of these European councils, we work with the best institutions from around the world. We need not reinvent the process, but we need to learn from best practices across the world in circular economy. And that is what the Council should do. We look forward to constructive suggestions emerging from this today's forum. We look forward to all the deliberations of the conference, and whatever are your recommendations, we'll be very happy to take them forward. We look forward to partnering you and look forward to a very active collaboration between Niti Aayog and the Council. Thank you very much. I look forward to your recommendations. Thank you very much.